It's pretty clear I don't work hard enough on this channel after looking into today's guest. Welcome to another DragonLance Saga creator episode. My name is Adam, and today I'm talking with GM Jeff Ball from Dicewise Entertainment and the Mongers podcast network. You can check out his myriad of video podcasts featuring role-playing gaming and interviews on his YouTube channel, Mongers Podcast Network. There will be links in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, and you can support this channel by becoming a patron on Patreon, member of this YouTube channel, and pick up DragonLance gaming materials using my affiliate link. All links are in the description below as well. Welcome, GM Jeff Ball. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, man. Thanks so much for having me. I caught your intro about you don't work hard enough. No, dude, like your stuff looks good, and I know there's hard work going into it. So you won't say it, but I got to tell your audience, man, like this guy works hard, and that's good looking content you put in the YouTube. I
really appreciate that. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you, but I mean, not only did we have a back and forth on your show, which, as far as interviews go, we went long. Like off camera, we even went long. Like it was, I'm hoping I didn't wear out my welcome, and I'm really happy that you agreed to come on here.
No, I actually, remember I told you I wanted me meeting you because you're a DragonLance fan, and I'm a huge DragonLance fan, to be cold. So yeah. I warned you, like, he has consent, I had consent, but I was recording us first coming into the Zoom call, and I recorded it, and that 20 minutes of us geeking out, I actually kept as bonus content for our patrons, and then
awesome.
Then we discussed the interview and shot it, and I had a great time. And thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, first and foremost, this is a Dragonlance centered podcast, and you had mentioned that you were a big fan of the Dragonlance world, and so I figured you're a creator, I'm a creator, we both love Dragonlance. Let's geek out a little bit. But first and foremost, I really want everyone else on my channel to know what you are doing on yours, because like I mentioned in the cold open, it's a lot. You've got a lot going on. But let's wind back the clock a little bit, and let's just talk about how you got involved in role-playing games in the first place.
Father was a big sci-fi fan. I mean, there was like Hockey Night in Canada and then Star Trek, or Hockey Night in Canada and then Science International. Like dad is like 80% sci-fi, 20% fantasy. And my older brother and myself were allowed to stay up, and we watched the old 80s cheese movies like Sword and the Sorcerer, the original Conan, the original Conan, and all that kind of stuff, and every Trek and everything. So I was raised like on geeky stuff. But I didn't discover Dungeons and Dragons or like tabletop games until I was 16.
Oh wow.
I was playing keyboards in this crappy little Genesis cover band, because it's like I learned to play keyboard on grandfather's organ, like the double layer, and then the 80s hit and the synthesizer. I'm like, I've come into my time, who cares that my left handing is all chords and fingering is crappy? No, it's my time, right? And I got invited to be a part of a band. We never got out of the garage, we never got a singer, but our drummer came up from Toronto, and we're in the North Kawarthas, about 2 hours away, and sometimes he couldn't come up. So I was on my way to Toronto in the backseat of this car, and the guitarist and the bassist and owner of the band in the front seat, and they're talking about the Conclave and Red Wizards and all this stuff. And again, being raised on, geeky movies and fantasy stuff, I clued into they were talking about, that kind of thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, we're talking about a series of books. Well, can I borrow them? Sure. Now, I hadn't read Lord of the Rings yet. I was 16 years old. I was a big nerd, but hadn't read Lord of the Rings. This saga, the Dragonlance Chronicle saga, was my Lord of the Rings. It was a large party of companions going around the world, setting everything right. It had everything. It had romance, spy drama, war, dragons, gods, everything in it. I read Lord of the Rings later, and it's like, no, I like Dragonlance better. So I don't know if that qualifies me to be on your show, just because like I read that book first. There are a bunch of adventure modules, like first edition written, and I had attempted to run them as a GM about 8 times with 8 groups over the years, and we never got past the first, like halfway through the first book, which always pained me. So then after reading the book, again, the band is failing. Our bassist is like, there's a game we could play. He pulls out the basic red box where your race was your class or your class was your race. So like everybody was human. If you were an elf, then you were an elf and you were a fighter mage. If you were a halfling, you were a fighter with really good saving throws. Like that, the original basic D&D before first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. That's the first thing I played. Oh, yeah. And to this day, like Castle Amber, that adventure, I still see content creators flash that on their screen. It is like one of the best and one of the first things I ever ran, because as a player, I sucked. And I couldn't keep my nose from behind the screens, and I love the maps. And Doug's like, you know what? I think you'd be actually pretty good at DMing, and I wouldn't mind playing. And I've actually DM'd more than I've ever played since I was 16.
Whoa.
So if I'm 48 years old, let's just say over 30 years.
Yeah.
I've been DMing.
You're a seasoned 22-year-old.
Yeah, but like, I don't mean a lot of DMs me going, well, I've been doing this forever. It doesn't mean I'm any good at it. I just mean I love doing it.
No, I identify with that concept thoroughly. I've been doing this for well over 30 years, and I'm still not that great at it.
But always room for improvement. Always, trying to better your game. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually took one approach. I was running a 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons game with a bunch of friends, and I wanted to make it so epic that I went to the trouble of actually writing my own original poetry based on the previous sessions. So they went into this sort of underground dwarven hall, and what the bard recognized them from, it's almost like that sort of pulp magazine in the West where someone would, write something up about like Bat Masterson or something, and people over in the East Coast would know about the Western outlaws and heroes, which really is not really true as far as the narrative that's spun. But that's kind of what I wanted to go for. And so I was like reading this poetry while I'm sort of tapping my foot on the ground to keep a beat, and like as if it were a performance. And afterward I thought, maybe I just went too far. Like that might be too much as a DM.
See what you just did there? I inspired you to a tangent.
Yeah.
And you told your own really cool little story. And isn't it fun?
Yeah.
People are like, when I do my show, people are like, why don't you let the guest talk? Because it's fun to go back and forth.
That's the point, is the back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a pretty big leap from, at least in my mind, there's a pretty big leap from enjoying the tabletop game and DMing it and spending tons of time working on your campaigns and making sure that the players are having a good time, to then projecting it out to the wider world at large. So when did that twist happen for you of saying, hey, we're having such a great time and we're laughing and enjoying ourselves. Why don't we put this on camera?
I've only been doing this for 5 years. So it was like 25 years of going from basic to 1st edition to a whole bunch of 2nd edition.
Right.
3rd edition, loved it, 3.5. Wasn't big on 4th edition. And then someone introduced me to Pathfinder, which jokingly was called 3.75. And someone had taken 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons and cleaned it up to make 3.5. Well, Paizo Publishing had, in my opinion, taken 3.5 and cleaned it again and made it much cooler. And I just kind of took a hard left away from Dungeons & Dragons and into Pathfinder.
Oh, wow.
And I haven't left that Amber. Like I'm aware of 5th edition, and I understand that I read a lot of the Dritz books and everything, and the timeline going by. I read a crap ton of Forgotten Realms books, in with the wife, the Elaine Cunningham stuff with the Antonio Than and the Elf Shadow series and stuff, all the spy stuff and romance on top of your Dritz with the awesome fight scenes that Salvatore would narrate. And he would jump through, oh, look, we're in 3rd edition. And then the world falls out, or someone falls the sky. Oh, it must be 4th edition now. 100 years goes by. Everyone ages but the elf. Oh, we must be in 5th edition now. Like, they just kind of going along. But I have lost touch with, like, the first love of AD&D. And Dragonlance is in that. But I'm going to save my next statement probably to the end of the review, because I have a question for you. But for me, putting games together, gaming with friends. I mean, there was even that thing where my eldest daughter came of age and gamed with her and her friends, get them into it.
It's awesome.
Actually, my eldest daughter, Alexandria, is a DM in her own right and has a group of friends and plays, whenever she can. And he's so proud.
Can we do a quick tangent on that point really quick? Because
sure.
introducing your children to games in general, whether it's board games or, narrative tabletop type games, I think it's really important as a parent because it develops not just reactionary skills of thought, but the imagination, because that sort of dies out in your, early teens and later traditionally because you're focused on other things. Do you think it's as important?
I didn't want to push it on them because the reason I got my kids into doing it, because, well, they approached me. I mean, same thing. Like if dad's watching sci-fi and stuff and I got into it, then with my kids, like nerdy stuff is on the TV.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I gamed with a bunch of friends when I was about 16 to 21. And some of the players were adults that had like 8-year-old kids or whatever. And we wouldn't play until the kids went to bed.
Oh, wow.
Because we didn't want to take away from parent-family time, right? Like a parent going, oh, my friends are over and the kids get ignored. I did not want to be that guy that would show up. Because if you have a regular campaign and you show up once a week, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you get to be Uncle Jeff, but, you know what I'm saying? And then like, a bunch of friends show up and the kids get very interested and they hang off of you and they act like little kids, like, ooh, they want to stay up and everything. It made me very uncomfortable because I wasn't a parent then. That the parents were, dying for the kids to go to bed so they could get their, one night of nerd poker on, as it were, kind of thing. And I'm the cause of this, right? And I swore then that when I have kids, I will never do this to my children. I will not, gang press them to bed going, or just wait for them, the slightest little kid acting up being a kid. Oh, that's it. Into the room, But,
right.
It kind of put me off. So when my wife's first daughter, when my stepdaughter, who actually just recently joined a couple of my shows now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, everything's virtual, right? And we were actually virtual. We didn't record around a table. We've always been virtual just because of the location of my players.
Oh, wow.
So when COVID hit, I was already set to go.
Yeah.
And it kept going. Samantha's in Calgary, which is several provinces or states, as you say, west of me, in a different time zone. Anyway, 16-year-old Samantha, is old enough, and I'm doing some homebrew stuff with my wife, and her very first character was a swashbuckling bard, and I swear her first session blew me away. They go down in a well, underwater, they find a secret door, they go in, they come up through an air bubble, and they find a tunnel. And the end of the tunnel is a door. My wife, loving rogues, is doing the trap thing, and she blows it, and she sets it off. Oh, no. And this gas trap fills the hull. Now, how evil is this? A gas trap, and you're in a secured air. There's no way back, right? So, and they know they couldn't get all the way back out this tunnel. So my daughter says, well, the mayor gave us like water breathing potions so that we can investigate this well, right? I'm like, yeah. She's like, are they still running? I said, sure. She says, I breathe my water skin like it's an oxygen tank.
Oh. And
I was like, yes, that's so right. Like, yes, right. I tell that story to like everybody, and now she's returned after she actually called me up about a year ago going, I would like to play again. She has her own kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
That listen to our Star Wars show, and she's like, I'd like to play again if this could be arranged. So I'm like, yeah. So that was the first strike. My firstborn, Alexandria, has always been a very artistic kid. Like, worked hard. Like, you get 10% talent and 90% inspiration, but you do have 10% talent in something, so you just become infatuated and just work really hard. Then the talent shifts 20%, 30%. You evolve your own talent in something.
Right.
Does that make sense? Right.
Yeah.
I've never met a more hardworking young lady than my own daughter, who throws herself into something she's interested in, and so many people that she's surrounded with, artists, friends, or whatever, just it comes naturally. They're like savants, right? And she works so hard to like pull a grade, or like to pull off art and stuff, that type of thing. So when she throws herself in as a DM, you get quality stuff. She went from playing under me with friends and boyfriend to getting married to said boyfriend. Again, both are in different segments of different shows, and is in Japan right now with her husband teaching English, and
Whoa.
they play with a bunch of people over there, and
very cool.
I yank her in once a year to do our evil show.
Nice.
She's overzealous, overbearing, exuberant. What's the word I'm looking for here? Gregarious, like her father. Yeah.
Nice.
And after Sam and then Alex and then my son, the kids were all 5 years apart. When my son hit 15, he was a Star Wars fan, and I actually had a couple buddies over that wanted to do a Star Wars show, or to play Star Wars, sorry. And my son was involved, and we had two guys who were actually in my first pod, and a couple other buddies and my son, and we would play in the basement. And that was my last sort of basement with friends, you know. And I'm happy that I'm doing something with my son, because at this point, a game night is not a family night unless the family's playing.
Yeah.
And if you get one family member, then you're still kind of ignoring the rest of the family, unless they're like, oh, that's cool, I'll watch my shows like ER and stuff that you don't watch because you have such a weak stomach. And okay, thank you, honey. Please don't watch your barfy hospital shows in front of me. I just can't handle it. You know, and so I thought I was so clever at this point, going, not only am I spending time with my son, I'm getting my game on, you know.
Yeah. That
lasted a year or two. And then the game, yeah, as they tend to, they go 6 months to a year to 2 years and just kind of fall apart for like whatever reason.
Right.
So no regrets introducing. It was actually 3 months ago. My son, back from college, has some college buddies, and he has literally started his own Star Wars Saga game online.
Good on him.
The DM. Yeah, as the DM.
That's great.
And again, I'm like, oh, I'm so proud. Because you hope, like, if you're creative, you kind of hope your kids are creative. If you're good with tools, you teach them tools. Okay. My grandfather, my father, and my brother, great with fixing stuff, tools. I suck at tools. Mm-hmm. My wife is good with tools. She fixes things around the house. I'm the creative one that's like, oh, you know, I can think on my feet. I can draw stuff. I'm good with music. I'm good with all this stuff. I'm the creative one. You know, can you fix this? Can we call somebody? You know. So to see creativity in your own children going, yeah, a little bit of daddy spark is beyond proud. And like you said, it draws out creativity, it draws out confidence, it draws out imagination, it draws out social skills, you know, that kind of thing. And now, thanks to celebrities jumping on the 5th edition bandwagon, showing people that it's not nerds associating with nerds segregated from society.
Right.
Nerds turn into geeks, and geeks are cool. And thanks to Harry Potter in the 90s, everything fantasy is cool.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a good time to be a nerd. That's very fair to say. Well, I appreciate you going on that tangent with me, because I do always find it very interesting, you know, to talk to other parents about their hobbies, you know, specific to, you know, tabletop gaming in this particular instance, and you know, how the kids get involved or reject it outright because it's what dad does. There's
a game we still play. We played Lords of Waterdeep at the table, and there's a game we still play when people come home for Christmas and stuff. There's a game called House on the Hill, and you put down these tiles, and you're like the Scooby-Doo gang that explores like a haunted house. And every adventure is different. They go with a different trope. One night it's aliens and pod people. The next time you play, you pull a different scenario of the book, and it's like the murder evil scientist, and the house layout lays down differently every time.
That's
so it's
cool.
completely. It's not too dark or gory that you can't have, you know, tweens playing it. I wouldn't go with little ones, but you know, like I'd say 11 up's a good, you know. And like we're making Scooby-Doo jokes like all through it or whatever. And
awesome.
And halfway through this game, one player turns against you, and you know, so there's a coming back to a simple board game that's creative, as opposed to like, now that I've discovered D&D, there's nothing else. Yeah, that's the way I am. But you know, like you could still have a fun basic family game that doesn't have to be an epic campaign.
Yeah.
Once you get the kids interested in sitting at the table with their parents and putting their phones down for 5 minutes.
Yeah. That's the struggle. That's my struggle. That's cool. Okay. Well, let's go back to where we started before the tangent, where, you know, you decide, or how did you decide to start actually producing it for releasing online?
Before I got to that point where my son was old enough to play in the basement, and that petered out, and I said, what's next? Going a couple years before then, I had discovered playing online with Xbox. I got the original Call of Duty, and I didn't think having a microphone and being online talking to strangers was my thing. And I got a free pass. My wife bought me this game going, oh, you just you know, have the free pass. You're a chatty guy. Okay. I got in there, made friends right away, and loved it. And spent 2 years every Tuesday night with a bunch of Americans, a couple of Canadians, a bunch of British guys, and we would play World at War, we would play GTA 4, and we would get together and we would just chat away at what was happening. Yeah. And you kind of got into that RP a little bit, you know what I'm saying? but chatting with a group of strangers or using like the online with a microphone as opposed to having people around the table when to talk, when to interrupt. I kind of got used to that. So fast forward a couple years later, I'm playing the basement. That game falls apart. Have you ever heard of Markiplier?
No.
This is a mid-20, handsome gentleman that plays a lot of video games. And there's that thumbnail of him in the corner reacting to indie games and stuff. And he's a very animated dude. He freaks out. Oh, what's going on? Everything, right? And that's how I roll when I DM. And I'm watching this guy just overreact to a shit game that someone mailed him. But the game was spooky because he made it interesting. He was engaged. So even though you're looking at subpar graphics or whatever, and he was complimenting the creator. Wow, this is really hard to do, to make a game from scratch. And you sent me this game, and I really enjoyed this game. And it made me think two things. First, going, well, I could do that. Yeah. And the second was, he was invested in something that he liked. And it didn't matter if someone like myself, the audience went, well, there's no graphics in that. You know, I grew up with 8-bit graphics. I've been waiting for the holodeck to come out, you know, my whole life, you know, working through every VIC-20 and then this and then this. And then one day, you know, you step on the holodeck going, I have arrived, and then have a heart attack at 75. Kids today, you know, they're handed a tablet at 4 and they're Candy Crush, and the graphics are immense, and you know there's not that same appreciation. So when I saw this gentleman who actually does a lot of charity work and stuff with the money and his fame and everything, I was impressed. Yeah. He seemed humble. He was into what he was doing, and it didn't matter if you wanted to watch this video or not. It just something clicked and resonated with me. So I thought about, you know, starting a YouTube channel. What would I do? And yeah, DragonLance actually crossed my mind. But I thought about it, and then comes to two friends, two Star Wars buddies. You know, one guy was associate sort of around high school, and his buddy that got roped into the game, and we had a good time in the basement with my son at 15. I asked them to meet me at a coffee shop and sat down, and they're like, so you want to have a coffee? It's cool. Like, you know, what's up? You know, that kind of thing. We're just hanging out, get them all caught up and everything. It's like, I have this proposal for you guys because I need people to do it. This is not a one-man show. I didn't want to do the me on Twitch ringing a bell every time someone sent me a bit or something and pandering to the audience. I wanted to be overzealous myself with the content, enjoy it, and then put it up and just let people decide if they want to watch it or not. Right. Less direct interaction because I would be distracted, or I feared I would start pandering directly to the audience and ignore the game. So I sat down, I pitched this to Matt Witt and Ryan Messina, and they liked the idea. And right the very next week, one guy got a job, and I scratched together a crew. I pulled people online from games. There's a website called roll20.net where people can just go to play. A DM goes, I have a game. This is a thing. Do you want to join it? And they put strangers together in a D&D game or any kind of RPG, really. It's quite the website. And there were people posting going, I'm looking for a game. I'm looking for this. So I started vetting people on Roll20 going, hey, I want to do a podcast. You know, come play with me and see if you're my cup of tea and see if you like me. And, you know, type of thing. I found two of my best players out of the States, Frank Hamilton and Aiden Willems, on Roll20 as strangers. And we have become friends as we've gamed together. It literally is that scenario where you're short a player and a guy that's your buddy says, I know someone. Right. This is more like going into a gaming shop and somebody like overhears you talking about a game, and then they come over and you strike up a conversation. You like them so much. It's like, why don't you come over Saturday night? Meet the guys. We're all nerds here. You know, you look like my cup of tea. You sound like a cool guy. You're about my age, blah, blah, blah. And this is what I did with people online. And we tried to do Mummy's Mask because I loved Indiana Jones growing up, right? Yeah. And we spent a year 5 years ago trying to launch that. And 2 weeks in, technical and cast left. And I went through 50 people online because friends bailed. Whoa. Yeah. And over 50 people, and recorded so much footage, and wasn't happy with this and quality. And I should have bought a decent microphone. We started off with like Xbox headsets going, well, you know, the wife worked for the source and was cool enough to like, here's a $700 computer with a little AMD card. I still have that computer sitting here. Whoa. Folding for my brother doing that COVID fighting thing. Folding proteins, right? For him, just runs nonstop. That's cool. Till it dies. Yeah, this 5-year-old computer. It's doing something good for the environment and health care. Got a computer and just kind of a self-taught anybody that would talk to me about podcasts that was podcasting, I would ask questions or get them, Now, obviously people that have like 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 followers, they're very leery of anyone that wants to like, hey, teach me, because they have that, you're going to ride on my coattails, I'm a very busy man, type of thing. Even when we met, and I was like, dude, 2,000 people in 2 months, that's great. And you're like, really? I'm like, yeah. That's there, because you put the work in, the impressive opening, you got a good voice, and and you're passionate about the project. People want to see that.
Yep.
So people stayed with me, because I remember a live Twitch streamer who's become a friend and kind of a mentor, Michael Kasevin, who used to be Ask a Pathfinder and is now doing live streams and stuff. Shout out to Michael. And I've actually interviewed him twice.
Oh, great.
Asked my crew in front of me, why do you stay with this guy? And they're all like, his passion. I was hoping for like, oh, he's a great storyteller, or oh, he's fun. They're just like, his passion is unparalleled. He's so passionate about what he does. We just can't let go. And I'm like, oh, so I'm not a good DM? They all go silent, and it's like, okay. So through sheer craze or manicness, they all stay on board. Okay, well, that works for me. It's not like I can pay these guys,
Well, let's
you don't get it. You don't get into podcasting for the money. That's the other thing is I gave up golfing. I gave up Xbox playing. Like the time you'd spend in a video game a couple nights a week or whatever, gone.
Yep.
Money, a hobby you'd put money into and a weekend into, like going to golf, like I'd like to do with my son, or drive or whatever, gone.
Yeah.
Right. That's gone now, because they're like, oh, you have to make sacrifices for your art. No, it's really just a time thing. You gotta find something that's going to go in your busy week to make time to do this, to prep as a GM, to learn how to do the audio, to keep everybody happy, and just move forward.
Right.
Nothing was happening in a solid year 5 years ago, and then Matt Witt, who I originally pitched and got busy and ran off in the beginning, came into my store because I was working in a grocery store at the time. And I said, you know what? I'm giving up on this. Rogue One, the movie, had launched and
that was great.
Restarted my interest in Star Wars. And I'm like, hey, you remember we used to play in the basement with my son? He's like, yeah, that was great. I'm like, forget Mummy's Mask. Let's do Star Wars. And he's like, I'll be there Saturday. Like, oh, you bastard.
Done and done.
Yeah. It was like, I've been bugging you for a year to save my no, okay, fine. So, we started on Skype calls, and we moved to other different, social platforms for communication and stuff. Tried them all. Started recording just audio only, and learned the hard way about microphones that are cheap, $40, $60, $100, that blow out if you talk too loud.
Yep.
They peak and all this, type of thing. So there's a lot of early days of shoddy quality. But I was obsessed with audio quality as much as I could get. So I was always on about mic discipline, or, something was just the microphone in the center of the room where everyone's yelling like this. There's an audience for that. It's cool. I have nothing against that, but it's just like, that was not for me. For a guy that was raised on too many 80s movies, I wanted to try to get the most out of like whatever cheap gear we had. And I kept buying stuff, sometimes for the crew because they couldn't afford it. Right.
Wow.
And we had a lot of fun. And then I forgot about the work. The fun came in because we're playing Star Wars and it was fun. We were shooting 2 episodes a night once a week, and we'd launch 1. So we were banking episodes, through holidays. It was great. And that was like year 1. And then somewhere along year 1, I discovered the Glass Cannon podcast. 5 guys my age in New York doing Giant Slayer Pathfinder. And I'm like, oh, I tried Pathfinder and Mummy's Mask. And anyway, one's the GM's an actor, former actor. A couple are voice actors, and one guy's a sound engineer. So out of the gate, they had, a certain level of professionalism. But they can't hide their nerdom. They can't hide the fact that 2 are friends, and they brought a friend of a friend, and the third guy brought a friend of a friend of a friend. And that's exactly my setup.
Yeah.
A guy that knows a guy that knows a guy. And we'll become friends along the way because we're having a good time playing, And I worship these guys. I idolize these guys. I spam these guys. They don't answer my calls or emails anymore.
They're like, we have enough. That's enough.
Yeah, that's up. But I started pacing our show, and then I want to do a second show. So you have 2 shows. It's suddenly like, oh, now we're a network. Why? Because I said so. Like, I was big on the idea of dressing for the job you want not the job you have.
Right.
So a lot of people come into it going, well, when Patreon kicks in or we get some stuff, we'll upgrade, we'll just work off of friends and chemistry. And a lot of those shows work because they've been gaming for 5 years and then they just put mics in front of them and they sound awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They have the chemistry. We were still building chemistry. We had a guy that 2 guys were friends and had chemistry, and this person, and you know what I mean? There was chemistry. It was not 5 strangers, but there was some clunky. So I sort of made us look bigger than we were.
Right.
I bought into a big podcasting host that gave me access to Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, like everywhere. Just spread it thin, but everywhere.
Right.
Instead of just staying in one. Some people just go Podbean, they're $100 a year, and they just like, oh, we're this great little thing, and somebody discovers them, they become famous. Those days were gone because by the time Glass Cannon Podcast came around, a lot of heads were starting to turn, and a lot of celebrities 4 years ago were starting to jump on these bandwagons, right?
Yep.
So I felt that I was already a year behind because of the loss I took in from dicking around with Mummy's Mask. So I desperately started throwing time and money into these projects to make them look bigger than they were. YouTube's free. Great. Let's put it there. Let's do video. We can't do video. We don't have cameras. Okay, well, look, Spreaker makes audios for us. We'll just throw audio up there. One more platform where we're exposed,
Mm-hmm.
Get on Twitter. I don't know what Twitter is. I'm learning Twitter. Oh, such horrible things and people booing you. Okay, oh, sorry. You sound like an old boomer. I'm not a boomer. I'm Generation X, but,
Yeah.
just throwing myself into this, and deciding on the next project.
So is that dressing for the job you want why you created a production company, Dicewise Entertainment, as a sort of the producer of Mongers podcast network?
Right. So, sorry, just one last little plug for GCP. I wanted to do either War for the Crown or something else. And I caught wind that one of their guys was doing a Patreon-only show, and War for the Crown was on the table. And I was scared to death of competing with my idol. They chose Ruins of Aslanti under Skidmire, and it's great. He's great. And I'm like, oh, thank God. We're going to do War for the Crown. But I want to do an angle. So I'm like, guys, what if you guys were like all Cavaliers? Like instead of like a generic party, like just we're all Cavaliers, and you guys have to cope with the fact that you don't have a rogue, that you don't have a wizard, you don't have a healer. And they liked it. So we ended up with 3 Cavaliers and a Samurai. And this is where I got into like, not big on homebrew. I really like honoring the writers by sticking with the story, but I always add a big subplot. Mm-hmm. So our subplot was the fact that this country had messed with the other side of the world, the sort of fantasy China. Right. And the samurai was a big seed for a repercussion that was coming up and actually came to head at the end of our first season. I don't want to get into it, spoil things, but we had a hootenanny time, and we started getting attention because we did this silly angle of all Cavaliers. And by that time, we had invested in buying the microphones that I was telling you about, the ATR 2100 and the QU Samson, right? The best, cheapest. Does that make sense? Like, it's a decent quality microphone that you can also upgrade, not just from USB, but to phantom power for 90 to 140 Canadian, which is like 60 to $100 American. And they sound really good if you stay close to them, as opposed to a whole bunch of cheaper things that aren't worth your time and money, or more expensive things, $200-$400 a microphone that no one can afford out of the gate. Right. So I love these things so much. It was a shining moment for us. We bought a bunch and we're still using a lot of them. And as I'm buying bigger, more stuff, I got a computer like practically every year or 2 years. I have like 4 computers in this room. Oh, wow. One marking every year, because there was always like, oh, well, I need to, now we're doing video a little bit, I need another computer to run this, because if you try to run OBS or some kind of recording software and the PDFs and whatever you're gaming on, like Roll20, whatever, it starts bogging down your computer. So I was looking to split the load. So then I realized somewhere along the way, like the guys were just the guys. They just show up. They're happy to have a microphone from them. They don't expect a paycheck. That's their fun night. But I didn't have a tech guy. So I GM'd the show, produced the show, edit the show, and ran the tech during the show. Now, lucky enough, I'm manic enough to do that. But I'm not some coffee hyper junkie or whatever. I just get so excited about the aspect of like, ooh, I'm making a movie, I'm making a radio show, I'm making, after growing up listening to Dr. Demento and the Sunday Night Funnies on Sunday night with my brother,
so good.
or watching movies, and then people making YouTube videos and stuff, is like, well, if I'm gonna do a Twitch stream live, or if I'm gonna make a video, I'm gonna buy the $60 layover package from 3D Net and get all these cool animated layovers that move and stuff, and not just commission one artist for a still shot. I'm going to go all in, you know, that type of thing, and try to look professional. Right. And maybe people go, oh, these guys are pros, we should watch their show, you know. But if you don't have chemistry, or if your GM comes off like a game show host and a real GM like myself, then, you know, you might start or stay in the mediocre fandom that I dwelled in for so long.
Right.
And then it's time to like look at your debts, the fact that the wife volunteered her tax return to pay for a new computer. And it's like, okay, it's getting expensive. I'm 3 years in and $4,000 in debt. And I tell myself, like, I would have spent that on beer and golf and video games and stuff. But, you know, so I'm like, well, maybe I can make a company and write off the taxes. So I started a company a year or two ago and I called it DiceWise Entertainment. And that way it could produce and be in debt, as opposed to me personally.
Right.
No, it's really not the same thing. And if I wanted to do another project and the idea of a network of like other projects with other people or whatever, it would be produced by DiceWise Entertainment. It would be the the Bad Robot production. Yep. You know, all those cool things at the end of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Arg, and it showed the production company, or Ray, move your head. Dun, dun, dun. Like they would do the outro with some production company. It's like, that's what I wanted. Again, to look more professional than I was, to save on some taxes, and hopefully present that again, that I am very serious about doing this. Came the question, if I won the lottery, would I still be doing this? Yes. I would just have a studio and better microphones.
It would be a better setup.
It's a computer, you know, like Oprah, you get a computer and you get a computer. And I'm like, still be doing this because I love doing it.
Right.
And that balanced me in the fact that I wasn't obsessed with fame or making it as big as the JCP, where those guys are pulling $75,000 in Patreon money a month, and 3 of them have retired, compared to my 140 Canadian a month that half is cast members helping me out, which really helps us break even because of what we spend, about $1,000 to $2,000 a year in hosting fees, equipment upgrades, blah, 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 right. You know, that kind of thing. And I'm exhausted and having time of my life. And here I am at that point, deciding to do the company was to solve a problem. Right. I know it looks like an evolution of like, oh, he got bigger and he added this. He got bigger and he added this. It's more like that robbing Peter to pay Paul thing.
Yep. Yeah.
I've got so much momentum in year 3 that like, if I stop, everything collapses. If I stop spinning all these plates, I'm in trouble. So you just keep on the treadmill. You just keep going, and hopefully, you know, something will catch on. One show will become big and pay for the rest. Or it's the obvious choice to put the other ones down.
Do you ever concern yourself with the idea that maybe you're just having too many shows at once? Like, has that?
Yes. It came to a head, the fact that a lot of availability was not 2 or 3 nights a week, was just Friday night. And we started rotating the shows through Friday night. Dice for Dishonor became our biggest pod at the time. And I always wanted to go back to Mummy's Mask. And we finally did, and the guys were like, we've tried this and tried to launch it so many times. This is your last chance. And my buddy Ryan had gone home and played the whole thing through with his wife at home. So I'm like, okay, you guys remember Stargate, the movie?
Oh, yeah. So
I found out in the Paizo-verse that Mummy's Mask is happening right across the ocean, the inner sea, from Iron Gods, where an actual before they got into Starfinder, crashed and got buried, and the technology is getting dug out and used by the Nemoidians, or whoever they are, the people in Nim. And there's an AI in there that wants to become a god and all this cool stuff. But there's androids, and this is how they introduced the android race to Pathfinder, because they're coming out of this one place, like they're indigenous, right?
Right.
So I'm like, okay, now that it's canon, Ryan, and you've played all this, will you play an android for me? You're actually going to land on a ship, be like Star Trek, land. So I had a ship crash in the sun. He crashes in the river like a pod, an escape pod, and the priests see him as like the second coming, because a perfect specimen of a man and perfectly fitted banded mail merges, not breathing, out of the river like the Highlander.
Right.
And the priests of Wadjet all think he's like the chosen one. And he's just there with his Geiger counter looking for some rogue nanites that I had placed on this spire in a big piece of amantium. So I had this subplot going with, well, it's Carnival. Everyone calm down. Everyone and every Indiana Jones wannabe, as the module says, they form a party. So he gets sucked up into a party, and the show is the party dragging him along as their paladin fighter, doing the actual adventure.
Huh.
While he has this subplot running. I did the same thing with the samurai and the cavaliers. He's got his own interest to add so that our pod wasn't the same as everybody else's.
Yeah.
Now, shout out to Rick Sanchez, the Find the Path. Now it's Find the Path Network. They do an amazing job, and they are the only other, as far as I know, really big Mummies Mask. Because a couple of the guys have had an attempt, and they've been lukewarm like myself, where they've just had trouble. And this guy's really knocking it out of the park with his wife and his buddies, and shout out to them. I never got a chance to interview him, but I spoke with him once about an interview, and he was the guy that put this in my head because I was worried he'd be upset. Because I'm like, I'm playing to a Mummy's Mask, I'm going to be your competition. But when he talked to me, he says, hey, the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yep. And
this guy got it right the first time, my third year in. And is way bigger than me now. A lot of people take one pod, one idea, one Dragonlance, right? And they run with it. That saying, do one thing really well.
Right.
I wanted to go against the grain. I wanted to try something different. So I thought, well, instead of like just staying with Star Wars, because I also love fantasy, and just trying to make it work, because we were playing a dead system, the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars is the new big thing. We're playing like the last system,
right?
The 4th edition D&D, the Saga system, right?
Yeah.
We had a great campaign that runs 3 months after Order 66 up until, and Rogue One reminded me that you could go back in time and present a story that was antiquated and dated, but really got everybody going, yeah, this is so cool. So I decided to dig in, get them to do Mummy's Mask, because it was my first love. And we launched it and did this type of thing, right? And then the evil idea came up, where we play evil characters and we run Hell's Vengeance, and we were just going to do it in October, because every October everybody wants to play Ravenloft. How many DMs do you know that go, hey, it's October, let's do something Halloween? I know. Like Ravenloft, says the DM. Yeah. And then you sit down, and by the time it's Halloween, you've barely got characters made.
Yep.
So we were like, I'm not going to make that mistake. Everyone's playing this Curse of Strahd 5th edition stuff. Nope, sorry. I've got an idea. Let's do the evil thing. So I pitched it to them. We actually have trailer footage of us talking about doing the voices of, and every pod we do, even though I DM a lot of them, we try to do differently. We approach it differently. Well, and we rotate the cast a little bit too.
Yeah, let's do an overview of your different shows that you put together here, because you've already talked about the Star Wars Saga Edition one, and that's called We Shot First, correct? And that's the image we're looking at.
Yeah. So have you ever had a DM, because you weren't doing a module, you'd be playing along, and then a movie would drop like The Matrix, and he goes, ooh, and he talks you into something, like next thing you know, you're rolling brand new characters, but everyone's on board because it's such a great concept.
Right.
And you play that for a while, and then the new Dritz book comes out, and he goes, ooh, next thing you know, you're all playing Dro.
Yeah.
And like, you're having fun with these games, but they never become campaigns, because every 6 months to a year you're switching. Unfortunately, trying to find that hit record, that was me. We did Star Wars, and it was doing okay. We were getting 30 to 100 hits.
Yeah.
Where other pods were getting like 1,000 a week, we were getting 30 to 80. Like, well, we're having fun. We're not going to put this down. But, maybe there's something we could do that would be more popular, and we want to play more stuff. So then came, my Cavalier idea. It was actually an homage to the Glass Cannon podcast. They were talking about systems, and fans writing in going, Joe and GCP, help me. We have an all vigilante party. Blah, 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 blah. And they go, wow, that's really cool. And Troy LaValle, and I quote, says, you know what I want to see? An all Cavalier party. Everyone on horseback. And I was sitting there listening to this show that they do, Cannon Fodder, going, yes, sweet idea. So I did, and I credited them. I said, we've picked up your gauntlet, Cavalier reference, Troy LaValle, and, here's our show, type of thing. He actually mentioned that, and he was actually interviewing Crystal Fraser, who was the supervisor for the set of modules.
Oh, wow.
Right? He's interviewing her. But just before she came on, he's talking to Joe going, I was looking at Twitter, and somebody is actually podcasting my Cavalier idea. And I'm literally in the car listening to this through the radio, screaming at Troy LaValle going, say the name, say the name. It's Rollmongers. It's Dicewise Entertainment. It's Dice for Dishonor. Please, God, say the name, right? And he didn't. He just like, I was just like, because it's not his fault. He was just like, I was kind of looking through Twitter and I saw this random comment. The guy says, we're going to do this. And, you know, the guy gets on with his day and ready to shoot his show. Right. So don't blame him. But I was like, no, I'm so close. Fans of the GCP found me and said, hey, look, the Cavalier part, look, it's a thing. And they directed. And I, people that, well, I like their work and because I think it's like my own. They're way better, but I'm just saying, like, you know, that's how I want to game. That's how I think my guys game. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I was trying to steal his fandom. It wasn't a surprise that, you know, some of his fandom found us and have stayed with us as well because of the jokes, the chemistry, the guys, the singing, you know, the whole bit, right? We're very grateful. But I have always plugged GCP. I've always been like their secret biggest stalker fan and that kind of thing.
That's great.
So there's those two. And then we got into Mummy's Mask and got it going. And then the Evil, and this is all first edition, right? Got Evil going. And here I am spinning plates. Man First Hearing is up and running, you know, and we're like shooting a bunch of one, and then we'd switch Friday and we'd shoot a bunch of another, or somebody wasn't available, so we wouldn't use them.
Right.
Sweet. The night you got to work, we're going to go play this. Instead of like trying to do something without like a player short. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got away with it. You asked, how can you do this? It's like, well, you notice my pods don't really, like, if you look back at 4 years of work, it looks like a lot of stuff, but they weren't dropping very regularly. Like, we tried to keep one or two regular, go like, here's a show every week or here's a show every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But something like the Evil Show came out like a whole bunch over October and then just stopped cold after 9 episodes. And this October we'll go back to it. You know,
is that the Foul Play or the Monster?
Yeah, that's the Foul Play podcast. The Man from Assyrian shot 20 episodes. And it's the first dungeon out of 3, so it doesn't even really count as the first season. But I completed my subplot arc with the android, who ended up sacrificing himself to stop the nanites that were swarming the young rogue kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we kind of left it there for now. And we'll say, okay, we'll come back to this when we feel it. You know, and then we have to, geez, Dice for Dishonor is still getting a lot of hits for our numbers. We need to go shoot. You know, we need to finish that module. Let's get back into it. You know, going back to that one and around we kind of went, right? Mm-hmm. Patrons start showing up. God bless them. I think I got a 6 or 7 that aren't like just cast members like Matt going, here. You help. Right. And they all love the Star Wars show. Funny, they all love the Dead System Star Wars, our first one, right? So you think you think that would be a sign.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Right. But again, it's like I'm looking at this going, I love Star Wars. I'm a big fan, but it's not the only thing I want to do. We've got all this stuff going. The numbers are kind of matching. Surely enough, you know, I shouldn't base what I want to do on the money, on what the patrons want. I want to give the patrons what they want. So their patronage guarantees that we'll never put that show down. Mm-hmm. That I can do for patrons. If you become a patron and say, I love this show or I love all your shows, then that's it. We're going to do those shows for you forever. One patron. You know, I think we got 2 for one show, and it's like, I won't put that show down. It might run slowly, but we won't put it down because there's a guy that loves the show that's paying me $5 a month, you know, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Kind of thing. We really appreciate them. And the credits at the end of my show is easy because there's, like I said, a handful of people. Yeah. So it's a little pocket. Yeah, thank you. That's you. But again, like, we would be doing it regardless. I'm not regretting the money out of pocket and, you know, that type of thing, because I just love doing this. It's become a hobby. It is a passion. And yes, it is time consuming. Well, so to follow up, the end was 2nd edition was coming. Mm-hmm. Right? It came out like a year ago. And I'm like, guys, we're going to drop everything, and we're going to be the first person not only to like play their first big adventure, but we're going to live stream for the first time. And we're going to be so far in front, because I kept hearing these stories about some of the big podcasts that were like, they were just the only one out there or the first one to do something.
Right.
So I wanted to know, you know, am I just being buried in a sea of podcasts, or are we actually good enough? Do we actually have any talent or clout or interest if we could be the first one? Mm-hmm. So I took my cast and put casts that never work with them. Bad idea, because you got to make chemistry from scratch, right? Yeah. So instead of like going with the cast that you had meld, it's like, well, we have other people want to play. These guys can't do this, so new cast, right? Bad idea. Live stream, never done that. Bad idea. Picking up Fantasy Grounds as a sponsor, thanks to Corey Thomas of Dark Galaxies Gaming and his gaming channel. He was a proxy for me and shook their tree, and they gave me free books. They don't give you money. Sponsors are like, here, you can have our stuff for free, just like really push us. Right. So I'd blown 160 Canadian on the master suite so that everyone could my guys wouldn't have to fork out to play with me. They would just use the free demo, and I had the master DM license, and we could do it. Right. What Fantasy Grounds did to become an official sponsor is they gave us a couple of the Age of Ashes adventures. They gave us the core rule book, and I shook them down for like a bunch of the first edition stuff. So they gave me like $400 or $500 worth of purchases for free.
That's great.
Thank you for being our sponsor. And I rave about them, right? So here we are, August 9th. The book dropped. Like, you have a DM going, give me a couple of weeks, guys. Jesus, I just got the book. I need to read it. And we've tried to pull off a show like a week into the drop, right? So it was messy but fun, and we pulled through.
And what was the name of that one?
It's the Elven Portal podcast, The Age of Ashes.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. That's the old art. I don't have the new art ready. I kind of did this. I got a guy to do this Charlie's Angels kind of pose.
Oh, cool.
Now, again, with a trope, with an angle instead of all cavaliers, three of the guys like, we want to play dwarves. These like Scottish dwarves that come down the mountain and they want to open a brewery and we'll adventure for cash and capital. I'm like, okay, plus a cleric, plus a bard, plus, and off we went, right? And the dwarves got to be this clique, and they kind of started ostracizing and alienating the other players. And we just kind of like had a meeting one night, and the other players were like, no, you guys do your thing. Well, I'll just write my character out. You know, it's hard to run a show with 6 or 7 people anyway.
Yeah.
You know, so, but the chemistry these guys had with these three playing the same race, you know, instead of your murder hope with circus of like, this is my guy, get used to me. I met you at a tavern. We're sleeping around a fire. I trust you with my life.
Right.
When the thing attacks at night, that doesn't make sense to me. So the fact that these guys had some kind of like, oh, we're all cavaliers from the same country. Oh, we're all familiar with the city where the pharaoh has opened the forbidden tomb. Let's all go into it together. We're all invested in the same project. So when we came around to this, instead of everyone digging into the new books going, ooh, look at the new type of elf. Ooh, look at the new type of race, right? We're like, okay, we'll showcase as many different classes as we could, but we will, they'll play these dwarves. And it's our biggest show. It went to like, I'm at 14,000 hits on the YouTube.
Oh, nice.
As a podcast, it's doing the regular okay-ish like my other numbers.
Right.
But as a video, it's like a #1 show. Now, those numbers come down, right? But when you look at episode 1, and I'm showing these numbers to like Fantasy Grounds going, thank you. And then I showed them to Devin Knight going, please, because I love his minis. Mm-hmm. In these tabletop Roll20 stuff I was telling you about, right? There's artwork of a top-down view, so it's kind of like a head and shoulders, but this artist manages, you actually can see like the stance, the weapons, the gear. It's a really good way of portraying sort of a bird's eye view top-down of a mini instead of like a pog head bouncing around the screen, which I kind of hate. So I reached out to Devin Knight through an email, and he agreed. So he shook them, and next thing I know, my Fantasy Grounds thing just filled with Devin Knight minis.
Oh, that's
so
great.
He's our other sponsor, right? So appreciative of this. So I use this stuff for like everything we do, right? Even though he didn't agree to like sponsor something else, I just bought his stuff and called him the sponsor and just thanked him profusely and throw it in the show because I love the way the minis look because they actually look like they fit on the maps they give you, right? It all seems to work like a good cartoon show. Mm-hmm. So here we are, and those numbers, like I said, come down. The second show is 2,000 down, right, and all the way down to like we've got 50 episodes of this, 57 episodes.
Oh wow!
And those numbers have dwindled down to like 20, 30, 60, 80 hits on the video and 34, type of thing. So like, again, I'm dressing like I'm this big pro. I got a company, I got all this artwork, I'm doing all this stuff. But if I crunch the math, it's 122 downloads per show, per episode. It's like 400 listeners. That's it. And in the world of Markiplier, or such as yourself, where you managed to, and again, congratulations, 2,000 guys at the gate is not too shabby. Mm-hmm. We're sitting at like 450 subs on our YouTube, 350 subs on our Spreaker host, 20 here, and then it spreads out, right? They got like 10 people listening on Stitcher and 4 people, and it's hard to keep track of it all. And it's so nice to see new people come in because by the way, audience, the guy that pays for the hosting, we can see you. We see your account. We see what country you're in. We see
Yeah.
what city you're in. Sometimes we even see your name. So whatever avatar profile you stick up in SoundCloud or whatever, they track it. And you kind of feel like a stalker, right? But then all of a sudden there's like this individual fan becomes a number. He's one of 10,000. He's one of 400. I didn't like that. So I started personally reaching out to fans.
Oh, wow.
Like yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you're a DragonLance fan. Uh-huh, you said. Hey, I got a show and blah, blah, blah. And, I can be a little bit much out of the gate, but then there's that 7-hour wait, and I knew you were vetting me. He's looking at all my stuff. And by the end of the day, you're like, yeah, I want to talk to you. And we did the show like that night, right? How rare, but that's how it goes. I'm I wouldn't say aggressive. I'm determined. Hey, how's it? Well, I'm harmless, really. I'm Canadian. Like, hey, how's it going? Right? People are like, well, what are you talking about? You got to have that recommendation. Yeah. Right. So, like, whenever I interview somebody, I show the other interviews. It's like, oh, okay, well, if he's interviewed, and it's like name dropping, but it's like, look, these people gave me their time, and I'm interested in your time. Mm-hmm. Would you like to promote your stuff? Yes, I get free content. No, I can't pay you, but you get an interview you can show to your fans. Yes, I get the hits. You get, everything. And that's usually the collateral, or asking them if they want to do a cameo on our show, because everybody loves Star Wars and some of the stuff. We actually pulled like dwarven cousins out of a hat. I had 3 cameos from 3 great podcasters that came and were like these guys' cousins. Because people started asking, where's the brewery? Where's this brewery? That they're like, okay, so we came up with a secret mountain map and a secret brewery, and of the 3 cousins that got off the wagon, the other 3 or 4 went off to the brewery, and I pulled friends and interviewees out of hats and asked them all to show up, and they did a great job. So much fun. We actually stalled second season to start the second book because we had 8 episodes of doing this tangent at the fake brewery that they're trying to get up and running with these crazy cameo characters. So much fun.
That's great. So what's this latest one, the Pen and Dragon games?
There's 2 actually. Again, trying to do something that nobody does. Mm-hmm. I got my stepdaughter, who suddenly wanted to play, my wife, who hasn't played with us very much, and a couple of newbies. I actually hit up 2 coworkers at my new job that I found out were geeky. One guy was playing Baldur's Gate. One guy used to own a gaming shop, and I'm like, hey, I got a podcast. Check it out. They're like, that's neat. I'm like, yep. So I got a microphone. I'm gonna send it home with you, and are you free? Would you like to play? Like, not that quickly, but you schmooze them on lunch hours at work, and they get them interested. I'm like, yeah. So I have 2 guys from my new workplace, my stepdaughter, my wife, and a guy that I knew in high school that, again, kind of came out of the woodwork going, oh, wow, I saw what you're doing. This is great. I'm like, hey, do you want in? I remember playing with you. You were fun. Let's shoo them in. It's not guaranteed chemistry, but this brand new show that came out, the brand new adventure, The Abomination Vaults, was a classic dungeon crawl with there's story there, but it's set up like that dig in level Tower of Doom upside down in the earth kind of thing. Right. The old dungeon that everyone's picked over layer 1 and no one's gone deeper. And guess what? Something woke up from 500 years ago. So now it's on. There's something to be said or had, right? Through, 3, 4, 5 noobs together and a couple old schoolers, and they don't know each other. So here's my chemistry. Hey, when y'all meet in a tavern, you don't know each other. So why not have that actual genuine chemistry with the players, Why fake it? No, you guys don't know each other. So these people don't know each other. They're put together, and we started live streaming it Tuesday night. Now it's Thursday night show at 8 p.m. on our Twitch channel. It goes to our Twitter. It goes to my personal Facebook. God bless free software called Restream.io. Sure, they want money if you try to spread it too far, but you can get away with streaming to them, and they'll stream to your Twitter, to Steam, to D-Link, to your own personal Facebook, not a page, and to Twitch, and to YouTube for free simultaneously. So again, me trying to spread myself out thin, 10 for you, 3 people here, 5 people there, 20 people there, to see if, collectively, I can entertain the masses. We started that a couple of weeks ago, and then we have this new one, the Pen and Dragon games. About 2 or 3 years ago, the beta for 2nd edition Pathfinder launched. And this was the one time for fun we had a Saturday day game. You remember everyone has not maybe a holiday weekend, but you have that Saturday where you can actually get people over. It's like the big football game. Yeah. Everyone comes over with their T-shirts and, that kind of thing and blah, blah, right? So we'd done everything online. I asked Matt, who is the front man and lead singer for his father's band, the Harry Peterson band out of Lindsay, Ontario, Canada, Kawartha. Shout out to those talented gentlemen. And he's he's obviously like being on the microphone and being a singer. Matt is one of my best players because he's used to entertaining.
Right.
You know, he's not just loud and weird like me. He actually is, you know, has a good voice and, you know, it's like my pro actor, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So he came over with a mixing board, and I got one of my wife's buddies that used to play on a Sunday night game where I actually roped her, my wife, and a bunch of just before the Sun in the Basement bit, we actually had our last D&D game where I was learning Pathfinder from one of my wife's coworkers while I was DMing it. He was a player teaching me sort of through the screen.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And that kind of birthed using a rules lawyer, because some of my shows, I don't know the rules. And I've got this one player, and people are like, well, let's buy it. Like, the guy's going to cheat. And we're like, no, we look stuff up. It's rules as written. We play raw. And you can look stuff up too. And we've encouraged people, and they comment, you guys got this wrong. And they spam us a paragraph, and we go, oh, thanks. And we try to correct it as soon as we get, as soon as we can later.
Right.
So like the book doesn't lie unless it's errata and like hasn't, been published properly. Right. So yeah, I guess a player could hunt, and like if I wanted to, I could stop everything and look it up, and we do, but I'm just saying, like, to keep things going, especially a live show,
you gotta have pacing.
Right. So in the Star Wars game, which I'm familiar with but don't know Ace, I got a couple rules lawyers. So what we would do is, like, I'm working with one player, and then I switch to player 2, and he has an idea, and it's like, okay, well, while I'm dealing with player 1, player 2, go look it up for me. Like, why stop the game for the DM, who is this side of the screen, to like, okay, let me decide, right? No, look it up. Bring it up, post it, copy it, talk about it, read the book to me. I still get to decide. I'm the DM. I'm the game master. I will make the call. But you can, you can throw that rule at me, or that, how do we do this, kind of stuff, and I get to decide. So it literally is like a lawyer in court going, Your Honor, and the Honor goes, yeah, I know the law, click, bang, with the gavel. So it worked, and it worked very well on a live show. We even asked people watching live to, like, if you know something, and we screw it up, throw it in the chat. We don't care. We don't be offended. Yeah. We'll either see it, fix it, or if it, fix it next week, right? So that came from me playing with my wife's coworkers and buddies that I was roping into a game, and the guy was teaching me through the screens, right? And it's like, we could do this live. So a lot of the old experiences, I just tried them in what I'm trying to do as a production, just to be different. I know there's a formula of success, and I'm not following it, and probably that's why I'm not successful. But I really wanted to do something different with my approach to everything.
Right.
Monster Interrupted, because it really is sort of like people kicking indoors. Like, you have a party and they go down there, the monsters are all like plotting or reviving after 500 years. And it's kind of like, I got this picture in my head of like, so, there's your creatures that are like, yes, master, we've come. And then, like, what does the party do? There's a series of video games where you get to be the dungeon master, and you're making this evil lair, and the computer has these heroes that come from the outskirts, try to invade your little dungeon, and here you are busy trying to clothe them, feed them, get them to expand, dig gold, and be your minions, right? And how dare these heroes come busting in through a wall or a door and mess your shit up, right? So this is what gave me the idea for this name, was the players are interrupting the monster, because it is a classic dungeon. It's going to run 3 books instead of 6. It goes levels 1 to 10, not 1 to 20 like regular ones. And we just kind of threw people together, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's great.
So going back to Matt and everyone in my living room doing a day of fun, we had bad audio, we had not knowing the rules, and we didn't like them. But one of our very first fans, Jared Mercer, it was the first time I actually got a heartfelt letter, a heartfelt email. And this guy says, I'm young 20, blah, blah, blah. My ambition is to open a gaming store in the States. And this was a couple years back, way before COVID stuff. And I was trying to produce a game to launch in my own store, like with a Kickstarter type of thing. And he'd fallen on hard times and everything. He said, listening to your show really inspired me, reminded me of me playing with my own guys, because he has books like Duotangs of like little homebrew worlds that he'd written out and never used. Very gifted young writer, never published, right? That kind of thing. So he was a fan that I reached out to, got talking with, and then as a joke, we made him our intern. So he would hang out with us, and I'd say, like you want to do what I do to promote your own stuff, hang out with us, and I'll show you how it's done in between the clips.
Right.
So he just hung out with us. And then I would like quickly explain, like I am kind of you, but not interview, going, okay, Jared, did you catch that? This is why we're doing this, and this is what we're doing. He's like, okay, right. And you write it down, right? That kind of thing. He just makes a joke going, yeah, I got coffee, like virtual coffee. And he played like a little bit with us, but was very busy trying to get this dream going. That fell apart in COVID last year. And he's trying to rethink what he wants to do. So he started a company called Pen and Dragon Games, and he wants to try to publish his own fantasy world that you could use in second edition Pathfinder. I had recently interviewed someone like Tim Kearney that does tabletop terrors with his brother, and that's what they do. They have like books, splat books, and they have a whole world, but you play it in 5th edition.
Right.
And they have a conversion. It's open source that you could play it in Pathfinder. So it's like, here's our homebrew world, published, ready to go, lore, everything, buy these books, but you use the existing D&D rule set, all right? And this is what Jared's trying to do. And we love this guy. He's a great guy, talented writer, and he goes on a lot of tangents like myself, so we, hit it off. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you ever want to do a show, let me know. And he came out of the woodwork on top of these recent relaunches, and I'm like, hey, I'm a man of my word. Gathered people Sunday night, and we're going to live stream it. And we have 2 weeks in. We're 2 weeks in, and after the first episode dropped, Aaron Shanks, the PR guy from Paizo Publishing, decided to not just include the Pathfinder Paizo partners, but to open a Discord to the greater community, all kinds of podcasters and content creators like myself, and invite them to come talk about their stuff, and Paizo will actually promote it.
Cool.
So that's huge for someone like me that's, sort of the bottom of the middle.
Right.
Type of thing, right? So I got in there, and I've interviewed half these guys. Like, hey, how's it going? I got in there, and I'm looking at these names going, I know this guy. I know you. How's it going? There's even someone I've been dying to interview that has been doing this, not Paizo professionally, but privately. Jason Ellis has a What Do You Do Twitter handle and a What Do You Do Discord. This guy loves podcasts. He has been gathering community creators and fans together in his Discord. Everybody loves this guy. He's such a sweet man. And promoting it and making spreadsheets of everyone's work and all their shows. Wow. And he promotes all your stuff for free. I love this guy. He even recommended our War for the Crown podcast. Crystal Frazier, the actual person, like the supervisor that kind of helped write it and stuff, decided to make a War for the Crown podcast with an excellent podcast group of guys. No Direction. Shout out to Ryan, the Canadian of the and Jason J. Thacker. He's awesome too. She's playing with them, and Ellis is like, in the comments, they're like, which one should we listen to? And he's like, Dice for Dishonored, but only, he says quite point blankly, only because the audio quality is better. Not that I'm more talented, not that how do you compete with the person that, like, from Paizo, right? That's so invested, help write stuff, right? But I took it. I was like, yes. So I take this to my guys, right? You see why I'm such a Nazi about audio quality? It pays off because because if you don't have the audio quality, if you don't have chemistry, if you don't have consistency, every week or whatever, and if you don't really push your publicity, if you don't have those 4 things, you're never going to make it. And even someone like myself, as hard as I try, the chemistry can wane. But we have such great chemistry in this other show because these guys know each other, but throwing people together, right? The audio quality started off okay, got much better. You know what I mean? So, like, you really got to shoot high. It would be my recommendation to anyone doing it is like, look, if you've decided you're going to start or try a podcast, don't buy the $30, $40 snowball and go, well, we'll see how it likes it. Okay. If you have a crew that has chemistry, that is key. And if they're willing to commit, well, you're already playing Sunday night, put a mic in front of them. And buy the decent one. I'm not talking about the $300 one. I'm talking about the $70 one. Put good mics in front of them. You already have chemistry, and you have at least decent USB, if not phantom sound. That is, I'm telling you, that's like 70% of the battle, not even half the battle.
Wow. That's great. We're sort of hitting our time limit here, so I'd like to give you an opportunity to let everyone know the best ways online that they can connect with you to see everything that you do.
We have our own website, www.rollmongers.com. So if you go to that website and it talks, there's the blurb, right? Our main host, Spreaker, has the audio for the pod. Our YouTube channel link is there. Our live link for Twitch is there. You can find me or us at Mongers on Twitter. Adam and I will spam each other's links in the bios if you just want to look below.
Yeah.
Or if you just type in Rollmongers or Rollmongers Podcast Network or Dicewise Entertainment, like, Rollmongers is kind of easy to remember. Everything you see, and yeah, it's pages, right? That's me, it's us. Because we went after stuff no one was doing, and because the algorithms go, well, okay, Mummy's Mask, right? First one, find the path. And then 7 links to my crap, right? Like, that's so funny, right? So they know who the good guy, like the guy that's getting the numbers, right? So to wrap up, I love the Pathfinder community. They are really nice. They are cross-supportive. You know what I mean? And if they don't like you, they take a step back and fade away. Never find anyone rude. No one slamming, no one competing, nobody, putting each other down.
Yeah.
They're inclusive, and if they can't be inclusive because for whatever reason you're not the cup of tea, they just take a polite step back. And I love these people for it. And I got into interviewing them. The Attack of Opportunity show was just to interview my own guys, and some of the music creators and content creators that I was getting permission to use their stuff.
Right.
And after a couple episodes, I was like, I'm having a lot of fun. I'm going to keep going. And I just started reaching out and looking for podcasts that struck my interest. And I've met a lot of the community because I never went to a convention where you do your glad handing, where you meet your peers making content creators or fans if they happen to be there and recognize you or whatever. I never got down to the States where a lot of that stuff is going. And now you can't because of COVID. So the Attack of Opportunity show was my way of not only networking, but to give back and to show other content creators that, yeah, I'm really loud over here, but I'm harmless. I'm really your biggest fan. I love your work too. Let's talk about your work. And yeah, as the show states, Attack of Opportunity, I do like going on tangents. You let your guard down. This interview and even yours proves it. I'm going to get in there and start chatting, spinning my own stuff.
Right.
But as long as you do it friendly, as long as you don't have a selling agenda, www.teespring.com/rollmongers for our merch, right? But that again, that comes as a joke. Yeah. We started slogans and keywords and canon moments appear on T-shirts for our own, because we could buy them ourselves. Going, we're wearing T-shirt, type of thing. A couple of patrons buy them.
Nice.
As long as you go about it honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to offend anyone, and I think you can have a lot of fun doing it. I just say try not to be discouraged, because analyzing the numbers and stuff, there's so much analytical there that you have access to as a producer, it can really get you down really quickly.
Oh yeah.
Because you will look at other people and they will socially go, oh, thank you, 1,000 hits overnight, blah, blah, blah. Well, of course they're going to tell you the good news. No one's going to go online going, this sucks. So-and-so has a flu. The wife doesn't like playing with me. I've put myself in debt. Trust me, it's happening to everybody. Everyone has their bumps in the road, but they're not going to publicize them. They're going to wait for that moment of 3 months, 2 weeks, or whatever, that shining moment where they got lucky or they put in the work and it's showing. The work is paying off, and you get that golden moment of, oh, wow, we didn't know. It's so great. It's like, yeah. And it is genuine. Like, they're not scripting that kind of bullshit reaction. It's genuine. They are so floored. I remember your reaction when I told you 2,000 is a big thing in 2 months. You're like, really? Yeah, it is. Especially someone like my guy who fought for it, right? But I'm not envious of you. I'm not jealous of you. I'm actually happy that someone is out there doing Dragonlance, because I chose not to. I could have done Dragonlance. I chose not to. And looking at your channel, you've gone far in depth than I could have. You're doing more than I would have. So I'm actually happy that somebody like yourself is putting out the Dragonlance banner, reminding people, even though the game companies have kind of dropped that world, that it's still one of the best out there. Lord of the Rings is eternal. Dude, I'm telling you, DragonLance Saga, it's eternal. It's worth your time. Pick up a book. Give it a look.
Reading Rainbow.
Exactly.
It's in a book.
Did I? Sorry.
It was close. Well, let me thank you once again for coming on the show and talking all about the history of your gaming, yourself, and all of the different podcasts. You made my job really easy. So
sorry, man. Just wind me up and go.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You get this level of manicness because I'm tired. Actually, like a long day at work. Like we both said, we just got home. We woofed down dinner. Like, oh, we got to do the interview, and you're just so tired. You start rambling, and it's like, geez, I really hope what I went on about made sense, as opposed to like, oh, I started early, and I did this, and this is a 20-sided dice. Why, thank you, Chaz. We'll learn D&D together. There's no smooth. There's no just like, oh, I gotta tell you all this stuff really fast before I lose your interest. That's how we roll. That's how a lot of podcasters roll that are a little too excited like myself. So I do apologize. But thanks, man. No, I have a great time talking to you and everyone in the community. And thank you so much. It is a treat to be interviewed.
Yeah.
It's rare.
I agree. It's a lot of fun. Attempt
that nightmare.
What's that?
You're like the only third person to attempt that nightmare of having me as a guest.
Well, again, like I said, you make it easy, so it wasn't much heavy lifting on my side. I could pretty much just set it and go. Let me thank the audience. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'd like to invite you to share your Dragonlance story as a comment below, what you thought of today's discussion or how you got interested in this world of Dragonlance yourself. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and if you can support this channel by becoming a patron on Patreon, a member on YouTube channel, or pick up some Dragonlance gaming materials using the affiliate link, we appreciate it. And all those links are in the description below. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join me in that celebration. Until next time, Slán Javar.
Bye, everybody.